Hi, my name is Skylar Ramsey. Today's date is May 1st, 2024, and I am at Roane County High School. Today I'm here with Mr. Henry. So first, tell me a little bit about your job.
Well, that could last for a while, but I'm Jim Henry, and I've been here since 1958, moved to Kingston in 1958. I guess the first view of Kingston that I saw was coming across the South River Bridge and seeing the high school. So we had big July the 4th events during those times, and we thoroughly enjoyed living here. We live close to being on the lake, not on the lake, but we live close.
Yes. Did you go to high school here?
Went to high school here, graduated in 1963. Seems like a day or two ago, but enjoyed it. We had about 1,000 students here, which is kind of surprising. I don't think people are having as many kids as they did during my day, but we had about 1,000 kids here, and we had great football teams and basketball teams. In fact, it was back before you had different classes of champions, and so one year we almost won the state championship in basketball. So it was a big deal.
What were you involved in?
I was involved in a lot of mischievous things. I didn't do much as a high school student, but I was friends with a lot of people. Some of the people that I were involved with, it's kind of funny if you'd have took us and put us as a lot, and Preacher Larry Bolden and I were close friends. Johnny Ward, who's a minister out on Galahar, and I were close friends. B.R. Ladd, who was a hero of mine, that he works for the Attorney General now. Just a lot of those kind of people that I kind of looked up to. I had a nickname named Frog, and almost all the people now that remember me from high school, that's what they call me. And but when I came here, I sat on a school bus with a guy named Frog, and so I became the little Frog, and then when he graduated from high school, I became Frog. So I carried that. I tried to live that down for 20 years, but people won't forget.
Right. So do you remember a certain mentor that you had from high school?
Well, really, my family had always been involved in politics, and most of my mentors, I thought, came from the political side. I had one of my ancestors was governor of Tennessee, and I had a state senator from Knoxville that was John Henry, and his name was, he was leader in the Senate. And so it was natural for me. I listened around the table to my dad and his friends talk politics, so it was kind of natural for me to get involved in it.
Right. So what was your first job?
First job I had was probably working at Long Island Marina, and I went out there and cleaned up and gasked boats and worked in the shop where they sold things, and that was probably the first thing. And then I got involved in a thing with a Jim Nall and Robbie Warden. They were basketball. Robbie was a basketball player. Jim was a football player, but we went up north to make money in the summertime and to pick tomatoes. Wow. So there was a big advertising campaign about, if you want to make some money this summer, go up there and pick tomatoes. Well, we went up there and had to hitchhike back because we couldn't make any money picking tomatoes. And so we ended up about 4 weeks back here before anybody knew it, and went back to work at the Long Island Marina.
Yeah. Did you mention something about real estate?
I did. My dad was kind of involved in the real estate business, and when I came back from the service after getting out of the Navy, I didn't know exactly what I was going to do. I had majored in civics in college, and kind of had in the back of my mind I wanted to be a school teacher. But of course, in those days, I think they paid the school teacher $5,200 a year.
Yeah.
And when I thought about how I'm going to support my family on $5,200 a year, now the thing I did like about it, they were off every summer,
right,
and they were off 2 weeks at Christmas and 2 weeks in the spring. But I needed to make money, and so I happened to have an opportunity to go to work at Trent Real Estate Company It's right out there where my office is today, right beside it where Griffin Insurance is.
Really?
So I went to work there, and I was the only salesman, There were several brokers in Roane County, but I was the only salesman in Roane County at that time.
Oh, wow.
And so I did very well.
Yes. Okay, what impacted you to stay in Kingston?
Well, I've always had a love for Kingston. It's a great place, and I mean, there's no place that has the lakefront like we do, and you know, it kept bringing me back here, and that's where my wife was from, and so we kept coming back here. We wanted to come. We wanted to go to the same high schools, our kids too, be involved with the same people, and it was just a good Christian community that I really wanted to be part of.
Yes. Did you go away for college?
I did. I went to Hiawassee College, and then I went to the University of Tennessee, and before I joined the Navy.
Wow. So you grew up in Kingston, right?
No, I grew up in Madisonville, Tennessee,
Oh, wow.
and we moved here when I was 13 years old.
Wow. So what do you think the biggest change was?
For me, it was getting away from home when I joined the Navy. It wasn't, I'd come home on the weekends, you know, when I was in college, and I was only 40 miles away at the most. But the biggest change was going in the Navy, going through the rigors of training, and changing, you know, being very dependent on yourself. And that was probably the biggest change in my life. And then after I got married, I had a 2.5-year stay in Naples, Italy, which is a pretty nice place, and we spent that 2.5 years traveling. It also gave us the opportunity to, if we had a problem, instead of running to mom or dad, that we had to settle them ourselves. So it made for a very strong marriage, and I was married for 47 years before my wife passed away.
I'm sorry about that. How would you convince people to visit or come live in Kingston?
Well, I would convince them. I've always thought that the main thing you come to Kingston for is because of the quality of life. I mean, you know, you've got the lakefront here. You've got a sidewalk that goes for 2 miles, I think, and goes from one end to the other. You've got baseball fields. You've got an amphitheater. You know, you've got all the things that, you know, that a small town would need. And I didn't ever see Kingston as a big business community. You know, Knoxville is very close, and so it's easy to get in the car and ride up there and do a lot of business. But make Kingston the best place in the world you can, and people will come here and live for the quality of life.
Well, is there one piece of advice that you'd like to share for people living in Kingston?
I think independence is very imperative and important. You know, I don't know if there's any lesson you get better than serving in the U.S. Navy. I went to war in Vietnam, and that was an experience that I'd never had before. Dodging bullets for a year, and then getting married and moving to Europe for 2.5 years it makes you appreciate. When I came back from the service, there's one thing I knew I wanted to do. I wanted to come back to Kingston. I wanted to get a job here, and I wanted to live here. And it gave me appreciation for this country and this city that I didn't ever have before, because of seeing how people, you know, you think about Europe being this great place, and it's got all these places you can visit. Well, it doesn't compare with Kingston, Tennessee, I can assure you.
Wow. So, success. I know that you are very successful.
Well, I hope so.
Is there something like a quote that you've kind of lived by, or something that you've used to get through?
Yeah, I don't think you really outsmart anybody. I think it's all about hard work. And I know that in most of the things I've done, I've outworked people, or I've worked longer. When I was in the real estate business full time, before I got into politics, you know, I worked 6 days a week, and then if somebody called me wanting to see a piece of property anytime, that I was there. And I was in the office. And, you know, the only thing you regret about that is sometimes you miss out on a lot of your kids when they grow up. But quite frankly, the biggest fear I had of having a family was not being able to support them. So I just tried to work all the time, every bit that I could. And most of the people that I've seen are successful are not the people that are really smart. They're the ones that outperform, that think and that work and put a plan together and do those kind of things.
Yes. What was one of your favorite traditions growing up in Kingston?
Probably the best one that I had when I was here was the July the 4th event that they had. They used to line these banks full of people. They had the boat races, they had entertainment. It went on for a whole week. And I enjoyed that probably more than anything that they did. And that's why I became so in love with this lakefront. I mean, there is nowhere else in Tennessee or anywhere else that I know of that has this kind of stage.
Absolutely. Yes. So what are you doing now? So what's your job now?
I am supposedly retired, but you know, the funny thing about retirement is that you don't really retire.
Right.
But I'm still doing some work with different clients that helping them do things, trying to cross bridges that, you know, maybe I can cross a little bit easier than they. I still get a lot of calls from people trying to help them get through the bureaucracy of state government or local government, and so I enjoy that.
Right. And lastly, is there anything that you would like to share about Kingston?
I think that the values and the morals here are just absolutely excellent. I mean, you know, you can look at the crime rates, you can look at the school systems. You know, we complain about the buildings, but quite frankly, you know, that's a small thing. Accepting, you know, what's going on inside of them is much more important. And I think Kingston is a great place to raise children, and that's why I would recommend here. You know, we've got lakefront property that's all over the place. We've got a quality of life. We've got water that's plentiful. You know, a lot of people don't realize how important water is. I did a study when I was deputy governor of the water supply in Kingston and other places in Tennessee, and it was amazing how the water, that growth follows the water. And you know, if you don't have water, good supply of water, there's no growth. And there's a lot of places in Middle and West Tennessee that don't have water, but East Tennessee is blessed with a large quantity of good pure water, so we're very lucky.
Yes, that's amazing. Well, that's all I have for you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate being interviewed, and somebody will read this and laugh someday.
Yes, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for asking me.